2000 and 2015, 17 countries successfully eliminated malaria, and an additional 10 countries are expected to eliminate the disease by 2020. Malaria control and elimination programs often employ standard community-based activities for malaria, including the use of community health workers or volunteers. The Civil Society for Malaria Control is saying that there is need to ensure community ownership and participation, including contribution to human and financial resources, as well as the strengthening of alliances to fight malaria.
We as community.
The program national coordinator, Ayo Ikpimoye, is worried about findings it surveys, which indicates that conflicts in some communities have led to the suspension of some of these programs.
Well, joining us now is medical consultant Tui May Bawandu. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Good morning. All right, according to the report we just heard, people are seeking, an NGO is seeking that communities be engaged when it comes to fighting malaria. But the question is there much communities can do to really address this problem?
Yeah, quite a lot. It becomes important if you look at the dynamics of malaria. You know, we have as much as 3.2 billion people exposed to malaria. Even in 2016 alone, we have as much as 216 cases, and as much as how many deaths? More than 500,000 deaths, mainly children. Now, until you take malaria fight or the eradication of malaria or elimination of malaria to the grassroots, you cannot do much. Now, we've seen that the loss from malaria is more than 12 billion annually, and most people dying of malaria are under 5 and pregnant women. So we cannot allow the malaria to continue. If there is no local ownership of the malaria of control program, we cannot get much done.
You talk about local ownership of malaria and, of course, eliminating malaria, but we've seen in a lot of situations, these communities, they don't have the wherewithal to buy drugs and all of that, so they go all out to take local herbs, which you call agbo in this part of the country. Is that a way of helping? How can government regulate such in such a way that these communities will be able to afford proper health care?
Essentially, when we're talking about malaria elimination, first and foremost, you must be able to control malaria. The control of malaria means that there must be a proper case identification. Okay. Then, after that, you must look at how to disseminate as far as possible the long-lasting insecticide nets, and then indoor residual spraying is part of it, and indoor residual spraying is part of it, and then treatment of women in pregnancy. Where we are now, we've not been able to do that effectively. Now, what the local people need to do essentially is what we call a scientific method of controlling malaria. Now, imbibe the use of long-lasting insecticide nets. Okay. If you have case identification, you have to promptly report yourself to a center where drug can be given to you, and we have to devolve that center to as local as possible, and then be involved and understand how to take care of environment. There's what you now call integrated management of environment in dealing with vectors of the parasite. So that is an area where they have to be involved. Now the thing is this: how do we get drugs to those people? Yeah. How do we get nets? How do we get nets to those people?
The affordability of those nets.
Yes, how affordable are those nets? You know, how do we engage the leadership of the local community in this thing and understanding of the malaria thing?
Absolutely.
So again, what are we doing to our environment? For instance, we are seeing increasing rainfall and the collection of water, which will lead to more breeding of the parasite. What do we do in this situation? These are the local engagement that we need to focus on if we are going to really win this battle against malaria. Or else, you know, it has been such a huge burden, both health and developmental burden to Africa. You won't be surprised that 35% of the whole malaria burden worldwide is from Nigeria and DR Congo. In Africa. That is something we shouldn't be having all this name. We should be able to take baby steps and do something about our fight against malaria.
You look at the fact that Algeria and Argentina are said to be malaria-free, and one of the efforts they put in place was cross-border treatment, free cross-border treatment, and also ensuring that there is engagement on both sides. But right now, our borders are closed. So beyond being porous, our borders are closed, and the engagement across the borders, because we are having even security issues that we're trying to check. I mean, how does this complicate efforts towards tackling malaria?
Again, before we look at cross-border collaboration, we must look at in-country collaboration. We must be able to, because there are different dynamics as far as malaria is concerned, within the country and within communities. Now, the purpose of engaging communities essentially is to see whether it's possible for a given community to achieve such level of malaria control, because there's a control, there's elimination, there's eradication. When you are talking about control, you're talking about minimizing the malaria transmission to barest minimum. But when you're talking about elimination, it means that in that community, we're having zero transmission of malaria for minimum of 3 consecutive years. Now, look at that, what the NGOs are doing. What we look at in a given community, can we achieve zero transmission?
But this community
is possible.
It's possible, but then its sustainability is a major challenge because of capacity of these communities.
It's a major challenge because we're not seeing the requisite political will. We're not seeing the requisite financing. We're not seeing the requisite engagement to take these people to that level of comfortability. What do you need to actually reduce that transmission to such level? 1, you need engagement of those communities. 2, you need to move finance. 3, you need to move human resources. And indeed, you have to standardize and up your control method. What are these control methods? Case identification, you identify the case and treat appropriately. You deploy net and ensure that the net is used. You treat pregnant women that are, that from malaria that don't have negative consequences. And then you control the vector, and you also do what they call indoor residual spraying. These are basic things that can be achieved at that community level. It's after we might have seen that done that we can now start thinking that, do we now extend to another state? Do we extend to across the border? It is, because small countries, look at Sri Lanka, even Syria that is at war, has been able to achieve malaria elimination. You can see Mauritius, Egypt, UAE, small countries have been able to achieve that. So again, what are the baby steps we are making to ensure that we move from this complaint of malaria, and be able to have sustainable control and then move to elimination? Okay,
so you mentioned some countries now, and it's worthy to note that some of these countries, apart from the government policies at the top, it trickled down to the local communities, the local governments, the councillors, and mayors and the likes. In this climb, we see that once the government makes a policy like that, it trickles down quite all right, but we don't know the extent to which it has gone. We only hear it on paper, or read on paper, or hear it over the media. Now, what can the local governments do in this regard? Because we see that lots of times
they are closer to the people and the grassroots.
Most times they are lost as to what to do.
Indeed, local government activities in terms of that will make the whole difference. Because now they know the number of households. They must have do household demographic. They must do household demographic survey. They know the household, and inside the household, they know that how many children are here, how many pregnant women are here. Are they having nets? Are they using the net? Are we doing indoor residual spraying for them? Are we ensuring the control of the environment? I'm talking about, the water and bushes around the place. I mean, local government, because growing up, even in this Lagos, we remember when local government will come and spray your gutters to prevent the vector.
We don't see that anymore.
We don't see that. So again, we see that the flow of drainages is key. From a place like Obalende, you can put those what's called paper boats, and you go down to the dam barrack. So we see all those things flowing, but nowadays all those things are not happening. What the local government needs to do is to touch the environment, encouraging indoor residual spraying, assure distribution of nets, and lo and behold, people will gradually embrace it. Because if you see the challenge of what malaria is causing, 50% of these children are missing their school days in the whole year because of malaria. It is a big economic issue. It's a huge developmental issue, and we have to confront it.
But again, the question would be, do these local governments have the capacity? Now, 2030 is a target for the elimination of malaria. And if we are to engage communities, will that bring us closer to the target?
Not just engaging community, but we must be able to create community ownership of that malaria elimination program. What do you mean by community ownership? First and foremost, we know that all diseases are local to an extent before it spreads to the other part of the world. The community understands the pattern of the number of children there, the pregnant women, and the community, the environment. What we need to do is to look within the structure of the community to engage on, one, how to assure proper control, because you have to start from control before you move to pre-elimination stage, and prevention of reintroduction of that malaria into the community. Now, at the level of community, we look at integrated management of the environment in such a way that water stagnation is prevented, unnecessary bush is cleared, and then we do an outdoor spraying to reduce the vector that transmits malaria. In addition, treatment, case management, anybody running fever, access to drugs, how they use the drug, and how we monitor. Now, even within the community, there must be a provision for them to have indoor spraying mechanism. Now, we understand one of the key challenges to achieving this is, of course, finance and the political will at every level, whether state, local, or federal level, to deal with this. We also understand that these germs are developing resistance to both the drugs and the insecticides that are being used. So, I mean, at that level, the malaria control program, both at the local and state level and federal, should be able to monitor those resistance, okay? But we must be able to incentivize, a kind of conditional cash transfer to such community that can achieve some level of some significant reduction in malaria transmission in their locality. So again, the campaign must be thorough. It must be built into the community activities, whether the local festival or even a key community movement. I mean, for instance, in the eastern part of Nigeria, where they have to do New Yam Festival and different age group celebration, this kind of thing should be built into it for them to understand that, yes, this long-lasting insecticide nets we're giving to you is for you to sleep on that so that your children can be able to attend
and not
schools.
For fishing, like
and then have reduction in malaria episode and reduction, and not for fishing like that. And the reduction in malaria episode and reduction in malaria attack.
Okay, so in all of this now, what can the government agencies do? Are we doing well in terms of dissemination of information?
Well, it's not, if we are deepening the dissemination of information, we should be having quite reduction in malaria episode. You remember, in 2015, we had quite a reduction. It was a good movement. But by 2016, we've had an additional 5 million episodes of malaria worldwide. And that brought out the challenge that we need to move forward. We've seen the Global Fund for Malaria, Tuberculosis, and HIV. We've seen the presidential initiative initiated by George W. Bush. But the core thing is financial support that can make this thing, effective and lasting and sustainable, is to have a local content. If we don't create that local content to provide us support, either financial, political will, and activities, if we don't have that local content, it will still be us waiting for the God.
Okay, another aspect that some have said is worrisome is the aspect of fake drugs, because even in these local communities, we find these fake drugs, not just local, around as well. How does this complicate the fight against...
Huge complication, because even the real drug, we're seeing resistance. Now, you know what the fake drug is going to do? It's going to create more resistance and problem in battling the malaria.
And death.
Now, the incentive to fake drugs is due to absence or scarcity of that drug. Now, as it were, we want government at a level to be able to make that provision of the drugs and the nets and the human resources to teach people on what to do with those things. So again, we have to, of course, we have agencies that need to fight fake drugs. The coding system that tend to confirm the genuineness of drugs should actually be up in such a way that you can do a scan of it and know, even on your simple phone. That will help to combat fake drugs.
All right,
okay, Dr. Tuyime Bawandu, thank you for your time on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you.